Welcome back to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. So excited to introduce our guest today, whose work I greatly admire. Author of this year's Bloodstains by Gaslight and the equally excellent In Excess of Dark, Red Lagoe. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's going to be fun. So, we always, I have been a horror fan my whole life. Rebecca just realized she's been a horror fan her whole life too, but didn't know it. Didn't kind of realize how much there is into, how much makes up horror that you don't always think is horror. And so we just always like to know, like, have you always been a horror fan? Is it more recent? What led you to being a horror writer and artist?
I've always been a horror fan for as long as I can remember. But horror has a way of doing that. I taught an online class a couple years back about writing spooky stories, and it was built for people who weren't used to horror. And so I kind of took them through all the things that could be horror and all the horror elements that are in stories that we wouldn't otherwise think of as horror, but they're a lot of life lessons have these horror elements. And so it shows up in a lot of stories. For me personally, horror goes back to my childhood. As far back as I can remember, I was watching Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock Presents with my mom. She would play reruns. And I was watching, 80s slasher films with my brothers, Tales from the Crypt and Creep shows.
Yes.
That was like mid 80s. I was watching this stuff with my brothers. All the campy stuff, every B horror movie that was on the shelf at the local video store, I was watching at way too young of an age.
That's such a recurring theme, especially, us 80s and 90s kids. It was just kind of like, if the video store let you rent it, then you watched it, right?
Yes.
And it was funny because,
and that's the truth, though. There was like no supervision
no.
at that time. Like no. I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of parents just didn't give a shit. They're like, if you want to rent it, go ahead.
Yeah, don't bother me if you can't go to sleep tonight.
I think I've said this before, but like one of the initial introductions to horror was American Werewolves in London, and my parents just thought that my brother loved the movie, like so scary, but he loved it for the sex scenes.
Yes. And he rented it like every other weekend,
yeah,
right? Whenever it was his turn.
It was like, yeah.
But it was funny though, even then, I don't know if it was like this for you.
Or I shouldn't say sex, but nudity scenes.
Yes. I don't know if it was like this for you, but it was very much that, like, if someone's getting their head cut off, fine. If there's, a naked person, close your eyes. What the hell?
Literally, that was my parents. It was like, close your eyes, kid, no sex. But everything else was like, go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I find my
kids, you know what? I turned out fine, Red.
Yeah.
I'm normal.
Yeah, the horror movies, they never affected me too much, other than some nights I had trouble sleeping. That was about it. I always understood that it was fiction. I always understood it was special effects. So there was this fear with some parents that if you watched horror, it meant you were going to do horrific things.
Mm-hmm.
But my parents weren't like that. My mom didn't care. She let us watch whatever. The only movie I was not allowed to watch was Faces of Death.
Because that was really one. A movie
that was the one exception. She said, "Do not watch it."
So then you did?
I didn't. My brothers would let me watch anything, but that was like a hard rule. I don't know if my mom threatened to. I don't know what she threatened, but that was the one my brothers would not let me watch.
That's funny, but they had it.
Oh yeah, they rented it against her will and watched it, but they didn't let me.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of those things where it's like it's not a movie. It's just like video clips of horrible things happening to people. I think that might be like kind of what people that don't know horror think that we're doing when we watch horror, when it's really not,
Mm-hmm. That's so true. A lot of people have that misconception.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting that you said when you're talking about the class that you taught, because Rebecca was just talking about how sort of the initial horror stories that she realizes are horror now, but didn't at the time, are like Hansel and Gretel and Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, those are always my favorite.
Yeah.
3 Little Pigs. love the shit
Yeah,
out
when
of,
you like
especially when
really
they did like the voices and they would get it
Mhm.
really scared. I was like, I loved it.
Yeah, and so when you said that like the stories that are teaching lessons and that kind of thing um are horror, is that kind of one of the things that you talked about in that class, or was it, other stuff?
Yes, well, I didn't get into the fairy tales, but that's a really great point too. But I got into some of the classic literature, like even Shakespeare. There's so many horror elements in Shakespeare, whether you get into the ghosts or Ophelia swallowing hot coals. There's
Yeah.
some brutal, gruesome stuff in classic
You mean
literature
like the
that
fate of
goes way
Ophelia, like
back.
what Taylor's singing about right now?
I'm sorry?
I said, you mean like the fate of Ophelia, what Taylor's singing
I
about
mean, I
right
guess
now?
that
Oh, I haven't heard that
I
yet.
don't I haven't read the words to
I haven't
that.
heard that.
I've heard the song, but I haven't
That's
really looked.
probably what
I'm
it's
guessing
about.
it probably has something to do with
It is
it.
what
Yeah.
it's about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
But I'm
interesting.
saying like I hope it drives more people to like
Go back to
read
the
some of these
literature,
things,
yeah.
right? Just because she's bringing attention to it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think people know that Shakespeare has some like violent stuff in it and things, but really there is so much supernatural going on in so many, especially of the tragedies. That's
Well,
a
the
really good
witches,
point.
the opening scene for
Macbeth,
Macbeth.
yeah.
Oh
Mm.
my god! Every time it's stormy out, like eerie, like creepy, like almost that feel before a tornado comes through. It's the witches, the Macbeth weather.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I know it's foreshadowing, but it's that feeling of the way that it's created there. Yeah.
Mhm. I think the other thing that I think about really, and you're in the Virginia area somewhere, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm coastal
Ye-
Virginia.
Okay. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and grew up in Washington, D.C. And I think that like the Southern Gothic and just like Southern sort of like mindset and family and stuff like that, I think that ghosts and ancestors and like things that happened before coming back to visit, like those are all things that are just so close at all times too, that it's like so close to horror. Your Faulkners and all these different authors are really writing horror almost, right?
Yeah, I agree. It just seeps into everything. Not well, maybe not everything, but it seeps into so much
Everything.
literature. There's so much literature in movies where horror elements they can just kind of creep in because it's just part of life. These bad experiences, these things that we don't want to face, these unpalatable experiences, they just tend to happen in life, and that's horror.
Yeah, and it's the other thing that's really funny, you saying that you taught a class. We've noticed like if a writer has a day job, they're either a teacher or a therapist. Like all of like it's
It's
so funny
true.
how many are one or
Or a
the other.
salesperson.
Well,
No,
currently
seriously, some of the
I don't have a day job right now.
Yeah.
So when I taught the class, it was it was for like a local writers organization. It wasn't,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's cool though. But and obviously, when you do write and things like that, you probably get opportunities like that. But it's just so funny how these things always seem to go hand in hand.
Hmm.
And I think horror is like that genre that you really delve into psyches and all that kind of stuff. And we've talked before that horror is kind of like the one genre that seeks the truth no matter what kind of thing. And I think that I see that in your work definitely too.
Yeah, I it's not always intentional. It just kind of happens. They tell you when you're just starting out as a writer, one of the first pieces of advice that I learned was to write what you know.
Hmm.
Write what you know. They kept saying it. I'm like, well, I don't know that much. So
my God.
let me figure out what this means. And then it was, and when it
That's
came to horror specifically, they said, write what you're afraid of.
Hmm.
And it took me a while, embarrassingly so, it took me a while to grasp what that meant because I was afraid of spiders. And that was
Yeah.
about it. And so I didn't want to write about giant spiders. So it took me a while to realize what my real fears were when you really dug down and thought about what my actual fears were.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to realize that those were things that a lot of people are afraid of.
Yeah, and I think that when we get into especially the longer works that we're going to talk about here, I I think that what scares you probably scares a lot of people, and I think that's why it, definitely resonated with me for sure. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, before we did that, is you're all also a amazing artist and painter. The fact that you do your covers, there's some really great art a lot of times inside of your books as well. Which came first? Were you always interested in that kind of art as well? Did writing come after, before all that? How did that come about, and how do they influence each other?
I was an artist of like a visual, like a traditional fine arts artist long before I was a writer, before I realized I wanted to be a writer. Art has always been there. So
Hmm.
alongside horror, art has always been there. So one of the
Yeah.
first pictures I remember drawing as a child was this scene where there was like a witch and she was guarding this castle and somebody had to get to the castle for something. And I just remember imagining the whole scenario in my head as a child. And I drew this witch in the sky and this, I think it was a traditional kind of prince saving the princess in the tower
Okay.
thing, but it was very scary in my mind. And I drew it. Art came first. And then when I realized I had all these stories in my head, the writing came later.
That's interesting. Yeah, because really, when you do draw anything, there has to be some kind of story as to what it is that makes you want to draw that. And I don't know if I've ever really thought about it like that, but that is really interesting.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was all stories. Now it's a
Yeah.
little different. Now I draw a mood, I draw a moment. That's not so much a whole story, but
Right.
it can lead that way. And sometimes with art, sometimes art inspires the writing, and sometimes the writing
Okay.
inspires art.
So it's like a chicken or the egg situation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
can be both. Do
Okay.
you ever, like, as you're working on something and you get to certain scenes or moments, are you like, I'm definitely drawing that?
Not usually, no.
Okay.
It sounds like such a disappointing answer.
No, it's interesting because obviously somehow you choose, because, like, in excess of dark is, I especially think, like, some of the images that you have in that book, like, add so much to what you're reading. And I was just wondering, like, when in the process did you start doing what went in?
Okay, so with In Excess of Dark, it originally published through a press who, a few months after publishing it, shut down. So I had to immediately acquire my
Figure out.
rights back, and I was kind of scrambling to re-release this as something new. And so I figured I'd just add some art. Um, and with In Excess of Dark, because of how just kind of emotionally dark it is, and it's a lot of
Mhm.
grief emotion, a lot of
Yeah.
grief art. I wanted to incorporate that. So each chapter has a piece of art, but it's not necessarily what happens in the chapter. It's just kind of an
Right.
overall mood.
Yeah, so it was just inspired by the fact that you're like, okay, I'm putting this out again. I want to have something just a little bit extra to entice people.
Yes, and plus, I have all these dark images in my head. I got to get them out.
Yeah. Some of they're just ingrained, in my mind, some of those images, especially in that book. And I think that it just adds so much, because that is a very heavy book. But I think it's very much like anyone that has loved ones is going to sort of understand the feelings that your lead character has, like, from the beginning of, like, I think everyone, I don't know, maybe it's just an OCD, as I'm learning more about OCD, like, this idea that, like, you're going to cause certain things to happen. And then, like, that book's basically like the worst fears of, okay, what if you actually did, right?
It is. It's funny with that book because it started out as just this really loose concept of being in the woods because it came to me when I was actually camping in the woods.
Okay.
And so it wasn't supposed to be all that serious of a book when I got started, but when I started writing it and I got, a third of the way into this story, I thought this is really heavy material and I need to do it justice. So I need to just either go all in or just back off. And so I just went
Yeah.
all in.
Well, you did for sure. I think it's still one of those, like, very early on, and for anyone that hasn't read it, I don't want to completely spoil things, but very early on, like one of the worst things that could ever happen to a person happens, and I'm just like, okay, we just started. Like, what
I
could
know.
possibly happen? Like, oh my! And it was
I
funny
know.
because I think I met you before I read it, and I was like, she was so nice.
I'm super nice because I work all this stuff out on the page.
Yes, exactly, and that's that thing, yeah, where it is. It's like, so that's a really good point. Like, do you think that everyone has different ways that they do work things out? Do you think it is a healthy thing, like as either a consumer of horror or a creator of it? Do you think that that is something that is really healthy for the person to be able to put those emotions, those dark thoughts and things and that kind of stuff into something booked?
I think it is depending on the person.
Okay.
So there are people who might read it and process it in a different way that is not going to be a positive experience for them. So
Yeah.
I've had complete strangers reach out to me after reading In Excess of Dark and tell me thank you. They just went through an experience where they lost someone
Mm.
and they had to put the book down a couple of times. It was really hard for them to read it, but then they're grateful that they read it because they feel like they learned something about sitting in that darkness for
Yeah.
too long. But that's why I have content warnings in it, because there are some people who aren't ready for that, who might not be able to experience that positively.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hit and miss. It depends on the person. Therapy is always probably going to be your number one option.
Sure.
but
Sure.
but horror can help.
It's a nice, like, little add-on. That's some seasoning or that you add on the therapy menu. Yeah, definitely. I think that that book and Laurel Hightower's both Crossroads and Day of the Door were kind of like
Mm.
ones that, one are the books that I generally like tell other people to read more than any other books. But I think also were definitely ones that helped me process not an actual physical death, but emotional deaths of sort of like saying that these people can't be in my life anymore,
Yeah.
and like being able to kind of process that and see why that decision was the right one and things like that. So I thank you for that book. That really helped me for sure.
Oh, thank you. And Laurel Hightower is excellent at that. Yeah, Day of the Door and
Yeah.
Crossroads, amazing stories. I loved both of them so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
she's amazing.
Yes. And it's funny when people ask me kind of like a short when I'm trying to pitch them to read In Excess of Dark, and the only thing that I can say is like, what if Pet Cemetery was a person instead of like a place? It's like usually, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm getting it." I'm like,
That's
because
a great pitch, Adam.
that's every time like when I read it, I'm like, man, like that. It's like how scary is that, and how tempting at the same time, right? When you think
Well,
like,
you just got to shorten it a little bit, because
yeah,
when we talked to Royal, who said that the advice
Royal
from
Puff, yeah.
Cassandra Celia is 5, Pet Cemetery as a person.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. There's your pitch. You're gonna weed the people out immediately, like
Don't.
myself. No,
No.
it's too creepy for me. I can't.
Well, it's not.
No,
It's
you
more like
have
a
talked about
heavy. Yeah.
how beloved, like you have gone
Yes.
on and gushed about this book.
Yes. No. I
Not
love it.
just, to me, but we've done it on a video together.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Like before we even started our podcast, I'm a baby. I'm a wussy towards a lot of things.
But
Um,
then then you went and you wrote Bloodstains by Gaslight, which I think is like a book that I just will never stop telling people to read this year. It's one of my favorite
it
books of the
is.
year by far.
It is.
And like there's so many things that we can talk about with this book. But I think so many people need to read it because like one, the way that you use, vampirism and domestic violence and a
Ugh.
domestic violent relationship, but like the way that you show the difficulty, and because it's always that thing. And Wrecking Tuck, this her mother runs a domestic violence or
support
domestic
group,
abuse
yeah,
support group.
for like
But
20,
like the one thing
22
that's always
years.
like the shame, the problem, all that is talking about why did you stay, right? And
Yes.
I think that this book is such a brilliant sort of example of like, and not in a cookie cutter, like everything is very
Because
not easy and easily explained, but it shows you it's like
it's
here's so
complex and
many things
layered
that are so
AF.
complex about it before it even gets to vampires.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
recognizing that. I don't even know how to respond. Bloodstains by Gaslight was a book that I was not going to put out, but some people in the horror community just inspired me to just go for it. Just write the difficult thing, to write the thing that
Yeah.
people
Mm.
tend not to want to talk about because people don't like talking
Hmm.
about domestic violence. It's one of those topics that they shy away from, they turn their head from. I don't know if it's because they've seen it too many times and portrayed in
Mm.
the exact same way every time,
Yeah. Yeah.
or what the reasoning is, but I decided to go for it, and I decided knowing that I may get pushback from it, but I didn't care because I had a story to tell.
Hmm. Yeah, and this book just feels like a howl of pain. It feels like, it's coming from a place that knows what this character is going through. And I think that maybe sometimes people are either dismissive or less willing to read it is because um a lot of times portrayals are probably very like cookie cutter. This person's evil, this person's good. If they need to find like that hero that's gonna pull them out of this situation, and it's like, and that's not 90% of people's experience with something like this. And I think you brought that perspective to these characters, and it really comes through as so authentic, and that does make it really painful to read at times, but I think makes the book more important for that.
Thank you. I mean, this was a long process.
Yeah.
This story comes from a very personal experience from my teenage years.
Yeah.
Like 6 of my teenage years, from the age of 13 to 19. Yes. All those formidable years when you're trying to
It's
become the
crazy
person that
how
you're
that
going to be.
resonates throughout life then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this book, um, it was actually not this version of it. There was no vampires, but I told kind of a young adult version of it when I just started writing. And so this is back in 2014. I told, this story of mine through this young adult kind of lens, and I sent it to an agent, and of course it got rejected. It was the first book I ever wrote, and it wasn't
Mm.
very good, but it was my story. And then I shelved it, and I worked on writing, and became a horror writer. But I knew I still wanted to tell this story because I haven't seen it anywhere. I haven't seen this depiction of abuse where the victim was not either kind of a person with zero self-confidence, zero
Yeah.
self-worth, or a person who was incredibly strong who sought revenge.
Hmm.
There are these very caricature type characters that I
Right.
always saw in the depictions of abuse, and that was never me. That was never my situation. And if it wasn't my situation, that means it wasn't countless other people's situations. And so
Sure.
I decided to just go for it and tell this particular story through the lens of a vampire story.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's like, how can it get worse? Okay, the abuser now becomes an undead creature of the night, and your vampires are not sexy. Like the work that they do is not. It is. They're gross. They are nasty beings, and like it just like I love that whole aspect of it. Like I'm always interested when people take on whatever this sort of classic monster is, what mythos they're inspired by. Are like, were you reading like vampire stories? Were you purposely avoiding them? Like, what did you decide was going to be part of your vampires and not?
That's a really
My
great question,
vampires,
Adam, because you can really take so many different takes on it,
Yeah.
right? Like either like what did you already like from other people's and then building on it, or like just I wanted to do my own vision of what that. Yeah, so I'm curious.
I kind of just wanted to do whatever felt natural for the character, specifically Michael, where we still had that humanity. Because I mean, I've devoured a bunch of vampire stuff.
Yeah.
And I love it
Even
all. I
before
love
probably
whenever they
writing it,
can
I'm
do
sure. Yeah.
something new. Did you see that one? Oh, what was it called? It's a fairly recent within the past few years. The vampire on the plane. It was a woman.
No, but that sounds cool.
Freaking amazing, and she was
Yeah.
on. Oh, okay. Anyway, it was a really cool story. It was a really cool depiction.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love when people do something new with the vampire genre. And so some of it I kind of kept classic, I guess, just because I wasn't gonna delve into a whole new vampire mythos because it wasn't really about the vampires. It was
Yeah.
about how this person was affected by vampirism.
Right.
And so when I made Michael the vampire, and Trevor the vampire, I wanted them to be human. And maybe they weren't good humans, but they were people who experienced really shitty things, and this is how they are dealing with it. And so that's what I wanted to portray in this. It was just that this is just a human who's been through some things, and this is how they're dealing with it, even if it's wrong.
Right. The other thing that really interests me is like, okay, so this is a pretty not great person. This is an abuser in a relationship. And then what happens if you give them even more physical, at least, power, right? And you turn them into a literal monster, and then watching as the person that's in the relationship with them has to navigate and at times take care of them because of the situation they're in, and all these things. It's this weird power dynamic that I think really was interesting to explore within this, like, pretty fucked up relationship that already was.
Mm-hmm. And with Reese, the victim in the story, she's young. I mean, she's 18, so
Yeah.
technically she's an adult, but she's a
Mm-hmm.
kid. She's still a child mentally, and she has to deal with all this stuff and not knowing how to deal with all of it because she's already been pulled away from all of her friends. She's already been
Right.
stripped away from um, her resources. And it's the
Right.
90s, so she doesn't have anything on the internet that'll help her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, yeah.
And her mom is just kind of distant. Her mom cares and her mom loves her, but she's just not there the way she needs her to be there.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things where, especially, within certain classes and working and stuff like that, it's like she's dealing with her own shit and trying to survive, herself in her own ways. And it's really hard to, have those resources, especially in that time period when there wasn't hotlines and places to go as much as there is now. It's just kind of like,
I think it was kept a lot more private too.
yeah.
Like if you're going through shit, you couldn't post like a cryptic thing on social media or anything. Not to say that like that's a joke or whatever, but
Right.
that's an outlet right now for some people to just even there was nothing, and it was like kind of, I don't know, at least where I grew up and where it was, I was like, do not really overshare anything.
Yeah, because ultimately, like, that was wrong of you to get that other person in trouble, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that was a lot of the fear for me personally when I was growing up was nobody's going to believe me. There's no proof. Number one, there's no proof.
Yeah.
And why did I let it go so long? And I heard that conversation so many times where I'd see an abuser a victim come forward and accuse an abuser. And then the conversation, even within my own family, was, well, why is she just now saying it?
Yeah, if it was that bad, wouldn't she have said something before,
Right.
or whatever? Yeah.
Nobody talks about the level of gaslighting, usually the abuse cycle and like the punishment and the nobody's ever going to want you. Who would want
Yeah.
you with these kids? Or what are you going to do? You've always been a stay-at-home mom, or you know what I mean? There's
All the different things,
a lot of power pulls, and you're imagining for obviously each situation is unique and complex, but um, it's very layered, you know. Even if you do like today say like, okay, I'm going to go to a women's shelter, it's like, well, there's a waiting list for childcare and there's a waiting list for housing, and it's not like a simple thing.
Right. Right.
It's easy when you see how much you have to go through to say, oh, is it really, that bad? Or, it's the devil, kind of thing and all that stuff.
Maybe it's both. Maybe it's still that bad and you want to
Mm-hmm.
leave, and there's just the outlet is not enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thought of, so this is it's a little off the not quite off the subject, but I remember being at a bar one night, and this was years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
this guy was getting really confrontational with the girl he was with. Like, he wasn't physically violent with her, but he was kind of in her face, and I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh crap,
Yeah.
I recognize this relationship.
Right.
And one of my friends was about to go up and say something, but anyway, the bouncers ended up escorting them out. But I remember thinking in that moment, it's like, yeah, you go up and say something to the guy, what's going to happen? She's going to probably, it depends on the person, of course,
Mm-hmm.
say it's fine
Yep.
because she's trying to diffuse the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But when she gets home
Yeah.
with this guy, she has to deal with the aftermath of the people who tried to
Absolutely.
intervene. And it's just, there's no right,
Like,
or
then
there's no
there's
right answer.
punishment to
Yeah.
follow.
And I'm wondering, like you said, the bouncer escorted them out together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
they
it's like,
escorted him out, but she followed,
she fought. Yeah. So
and
it's like,
everything was
what,
fine.
it
Because if she
made
doesn't,
everyone
what's going to happen?
there. Yeah. It's like, it made everyone there not uncomfortable anymore, but like, it didn't actually help the situation at all. Right.
Right. And there's not a lot anyone can do in that situation. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, people would be leaving left and right if the answer was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
That's
great
right.
point, right?
That's true. The one thing that interests me too, and always, we were just talking to another author yesterday about her book that's set like in the mid 90s, in that time period, roughly also, where there's such a, um, and I don't know if it's like people maybe that didn't live through it, like at the ages we were when we lived through it, but like these rose colored glasses for like the 90s and things. And I'm just like, I love that your book is like an accurate representation of that time period. There was good things, but like the fact that you couldn't get on the internet and find help or find solidarity or think, you know, figure out that you're not the only one going through this, or that just what you're going through is wrong in the first place. Like it was a very isolating, time period because of the lack of some of the resources we have now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember, I mean, gosh, my recollection of the internet in 1996, I think I got it.
Mm-hmm.
It was dial up AOL.
Yeah.
Mm,
I didn't know what websites were out there. It wasn't the time period where you could order pizza
yeah,
online. Remember that movie, The Net, with
there
Sandra
was like
Bullock?
Ask Jeeves, and like,
Yeah.
people would be like, I'm going to surf the internet. And I'm like, where?
Yeah.
It's like you
There's
had
nothing
to
out
You
there.
have
went into a chat room
a,
for like the type of movies you liked, and that was the internet to
yeah,
me.
because the like, you couldn't, you were like, you had to have like an early adopter of a website and something, in like e-commerce wasn't really a thing, it's
Well,
like
even in
early on.
Scream, I remember like there's that thing where she like chats with 911 on her computer, and I'm like,
Oh,
what are
bullshit.
you talking
Not
about?
in
What,
the
who,
90s, no.
you can do
Maybe
that?
in
It's not even a
LA.
thing now.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know now. Like, we just had an assembly for fire prevention, and they were like, did you know you could text 911 and just chat with them through text?
No, I
And
didn't,
I'm
which is
like,
why
I
I just
had
said,
no
no, I
idea.
didn't.
Like, you
Yeah.
can? Like, really?
Our town didn't even get 911 until the mid to late 90s.
Oh,
Like,
That's
we didn't
deeply
even have
uncomfortable.
911.
That is deeply,
you had to call like the police station?
Yeah, you
Like, how
call
did
the
that even?
police. We had a list of phone numbers by the phone that was the police, the fire department. Like, that's what you
yes.
did.
Or
You
like,
just,
we had it like taped to the inside of the cabinet, like emergency
yep.
numbers.
That's wild. That's so crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is it's like not all places have it or, and that freaks me out. But then also, like, how many kids do you think accidentally text 911? Because as a kid, dialing 911 just to test it out or to, no one else
I don't
did
know.
that.
I don't think anyone puts numbers into their phone like that.
Listen,
right?
it was a joke to bring back the fact that, like,
oh yeah,
as a kid, I would like you never pressed 0 for the operator and then hung up when she picked up and
from
then
payphones, not from my home.
Well, I
phones.
definitely did. Okay. And then my mom would be like, Rebecca, someone said they keep calling the operator. And I'm like, it's weird.
That's
Can
so
you even
funny.
call the operator anymore?
What a
Is that an
child jail.
Yeah,
What
I
the
wonder, is there an operator anymore? We're gonna find out when
Can
we
you
get
call
off
the
I
operator?
don't think so.
Star 69. Those people that would like
No.
try to.
I just
calling-
like, having to call time and temperature regularly.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
in the movies, we had to call
Yes.
and find out what movies
Yeah,
are
you
playing
took
when-
forever.
Welcome to movie
listening.
phone. Like,
Yeah, man. Now that's a number I had memorized because
Yeah.
when you're out and you're like, let's go to the movies, and you're not like going to dig through the phone book and whatever. No, I mean the other thing I wanted to bring up here about the 90s, I think I feel a bit more nostalgic than you do about it, Adam. But
I feel very nostalgic about the 90s.
he's lying, doesn't. Anyway, is the stigma around mental health. I mean,
Yes.
you dare not tell someone that you're on medication.
Mhm.
To reveal that you were in therapy was
yeah.
absolutely not. Like
I remember when Prozac like came out basically, and it was very much like even in like Washington D.C. it was very
it was like,
oh no, you can't be on that.
It's like you don't want to be labeled. It was so. I mean, you think about as you're going through shit like this, your nervous system is deeply disrupted, and your levels or chemicals are, for the most part, when someone has a divorce or someone dies and whatever, like, they're often like, let's put you on some SSRI. If you're like I was the other day in the beauty shop, there was a pastor in there who said that he thought he was having a heart attack and he was actually having a panic attack that really looked like a panic, like a heart attack, like down the arm. And he's like, I don't really want to take a pill every day. And they were like, well, do you want to try some medical marijuana? And he was like, all right. He's like, I really had a lot of cognitive dissonance around it because in the 90s I was taught it was such a bad thing, but here I am using medical marijuana. And it's like, it really does kind of showcase the fact that like everything was wrong in the 90s. It was so taboo. And now it's like you can be a pastor and be at that level and smoke medical marijuana to help your anxiety. Like, look how far we've come.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, in the 90s, it was
I mean,
kinda
I
fucked up. Like, you had to deal with everything yourself. And if you didn't deal with it yourself, there was something wrong.
Yes. You were a bitch if you didn't. You didn't have a choice. But like I did still judge the pastor. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, should you really be telling people that? Like, and I think that's the
Look,
90s.
if I'm gonna have a pastor, I want a stoned one. That sounds amazing.
But I think you're right, probably, Adam. Like that's a good way to look at it. But like I think for me, it is that I was like a child of dare.
Yeah.
And there is still so much.
Oh man, we would have so many assemblies of like, the videos where the kids, it's like, here, try some drugs. Like I always thought people were just gonna walk up and like throw drugs at me.
I love the points. Like, who's giving away free drugs? Those are expensive.
It was like you trip and accidentally fall in crack.
Yeah,
think what's gonna happen.
And the like cracked egg. This is your brain.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is your brain on drugs.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the one of
good old Johnny Depp.
The kid crying, and he's like, and the father's like, "Where did you learn this?" I learned it from you, Dad.
You learned it
from you.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
And the dad's like, "Oh, I done fucked up.
Yeah.
You're right. I am a drug addict." You know what I mean? It's like
Dad still looks pissed.
He did. I think he was more pissed that the son outed him. It was like, why? Like this is. I mean, truly, like, and I'm not kidding. I think it is like an unspoken rule. Even if you did learn it from me, you're not supposed to tell me. Like that was the 90s in that way. Like, how dare you address the elephant in the room like that? Now kids are like, you better apologize to me because I saw that your body language shifted a little bit when I told you.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, I think I apologize to my kids more than like is appropriate. But
it's to make up, it
is. I'm trying to counterbalance the 90s, of that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was worse, in a more rural suburban area, that
I was isolated as fuck. Like
Yeah.
we didn't have a post office number. Like we didn't have a street
Yeah, your
address
street,
number.
not you.
It
Like
was
your
a
road didn't
rural
have a name.
delivery. Yeah.
Which I can't imagine. It's like where do you live? Rural Road 4. I'm
I
like,
mean, it had a
well, how the
road,
hell
but
do you
if you
find
needed
that?
it had a road name, but if you had to mail me something, I would have to give you the rural delivery number.
Yeah, that's just
Oh,
mind
wow.
boggling.
Yeah, that's out there.
Yeah, like you're not. I don't want to say that we're in like what's that movie?
Wrong turn.
Yeah,
Delivery.
it's
Sure,
not as
yeah.
isolating as that, and there weren't freaks around there like that.
Nobody
But
was strapped under your bed.
you
No.
never know. You know, people could be in the barn or, you know, who knows. But no, I mean, we had 21 acres and like, you know, our nearest neighbor, it's like you're walking a couple acres to like get over there. There, you know, it was easy to just be isolated and, you know, there was no like
Chainsaw Massacre.
yeah,
over
there
here,
was no
yeah.
like, let's just hang out with your friends, you know, because no one's there. You're isolated. So
And that's a horror story all on its own.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you tell that one of the reasons that you weren't into horror is because your brother used that 21 acres to
he
terrify you
fucked
at all
me
times.
up. He fucked me up. And he's still like coincidentally, he is a pastor.
Yeah,
Now.
he's a chaplain for like the church, the prison, and
But he like he's still a trickster because we had our exchange student go over to his house and I was like, she really likes pickles. He's like, oh yeah, let me get some out of the fridge here, and immediately gives her the hottest freaking pickle. She's just met him and she's
ghost
like
pepper
kind of
pickles.
coughing and you know whatever. But he loved doing that shit. So we'd be out late at night walking home from a friend's house and he'd be like, oh my God, there's Jason or there's Freddy Krueger, and he'd haul ass. And you know, it's pitch black.
And he's 5 years older and like a football player.
6 years older,
Yeah.
really fast. And I am like,
He's like the running back
I can
for the high
hear
school.
the pounding in my ears. I'm running. Yeah, it has really like that part of myself is an unhealed version of childhood because I still don't want to dress up as any of those characters. And I was like, why don't you give it a try to watch it again? No, thank you. I'm not interested.
Reminds
My
me
brothers
of,
used to do that to me. My brothers.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, because you said you had brothers.
I
Yeah,
had
what
3
kind of
brothers. I was the only girl.
How many?
3 brothers growing up.
Me too. Same situation. 3 brothers, only girl.
Yep, I had 2 older brothers. So one of them used to do that thing where he could flip his eyelids inside out.
God, I hate
And
that.
he would stare at me and say like, I am a devil worshiper. And like, that would freak me out. That would scare the hell out of me. I don't...
Did he
You
like
get a kick out
poke
of
it
it.
down and suck a spit in and out of his mouth too?
They used to do this spit in and out. I don't remember him holding me down. You might have. I don't know. There was a lot of... And then
That was just me. And
there
you,
was
Adam?
No, that happened to me.
Yeah.
a night when my friend came over and we were camping in a tent in my backyard. It was me and my friend Michelle. And it was, I don't know, it was middle of the night. We were in the yard in a tent. We were having a little camp out. And my brother came home from work because he was a teenager. And he started like, I'm like, I know he's going to come and try to scare us. And like, I knew it was going to happen, but it was still terrifying because I could hear the footsteps. We didn't know if it was really him. And he'd like slash his fingers across the outside of the tent like Freddy Krueger.
Oh my God. That's so funny. So like, my father was very anti-horror movie, but I don't know why it still like never like really stopped us from it. And I never forget, like the only time he ever...
He was like an uninvolved parent. He was just like,
yeah, he just was,
I'm tired by the evening. Let me rest my eyes.
I forgot he was there many times. But like the one time, it was like summer night, watching a Friday the 13th sequel. Pretty sure it was 7 because we rented 7 all the time because of the sleeping bag scene made us, you know, sick laugh every time. But we're watching, you know, remember that where he zipped her up in the sleeping bag and slammed it up against the tree?
I never, listen.
You've never seen that?
No, there was one Jason that we watched repeatedly, which you tell me all the time is the worst Jason.
5? The one where Jason's not even in it?
No, the one with the kid where Vic and the candy bar. And
yeah, that's the one Jason's not even in, actually.
Allegedly, even though he's really in it.
It
was traumatizing. It was
ambulance
he's in the porta potty and
Yeah.
You said number 1, the first one?
5.
That's what I thought it was, the first one.
5 is the one, the New Beginning, where is that like a home for troubled youth, and at the end it turns out it wasn't even
Jason. It's about the nurse when the nurse unzips her thing and her boobs fall out. This is why we only watch that one.
Yeah.
See, they're all a blur. Like all the slasher movies, I get them confused sometimes because it's just this blur of blood, blades, and boobs. Like
Yeah,
That's all of them.
Blur, blade, and boobs. I
that's the
love it.
quote. That's
That's
our
our
clip for
promotion
this one.
code.
Yeah.
Exactly. Adam,
What
I thought the exact same thing, so I'm glad you
what
said
do we
it.
got this? But I just remember, like, one of the few things, because I I was a horror freak, but everyone kind of like watched at certain times scary movies, and it was definitely always like we always called it the big three of Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. We would just sit and argue who would win in a fight and all that kind of stuff. But we were watching it, and my dad got one of those those 3-prong like trowel things that you would like dig up
Uh-huh.
plants with and stuff like that, and he just scraped it across the window, like, and that was like the one, and that was the one time I scared the shit out of me so bad, and but I loved it. Never happened again, but that was definitely, I can see how if you have that happen every time, that it would kind of put you off probably from the experience for sure. But
I just want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you guys find saying horror? You said it multiple times, and I'm like, horror, horror,
that's what
horror.
and that's what I said.
It turns into horror.
Yeah, we've interviewed people all across the country, and like different people say it a different way. I always feel like I end up, if I say it too many times, I end up sounding like I'm saying horror.
It
It's
is,
like,
and it's like one of those things when you
I
look
just
at a
say
word
more.
and you're like,
I stopped caring.
yeah,
you know what I mean? Where you look at a word too long and you're like, that doesn't look right. Like that happened to
yeah,
me the other day with the word new, and I was like,
new,
what the fuck? That's not how you spell that.
yeah. I
Mhm.
forget what it was. I was teaching something about like chemical reactions or something, and I think it was acids and bases, and I was like, base. Why does this word seem so weird?
Mhm.
Like, is this really it? I'm looking at the paper, like, okay, I'm right. But definitely. But
Yeah, the more we say it, though, it just sounds ridiculous. And I think
yeah.
we should implement a drinking game when Adam says, I'm from Tennessee, but I grew up in DC, because I think it comes up on every episode.
Did you know I was
Just take a fucking drink.
Well, listen, okay.
You should just start off the
Mother's
video and be
trauma,
like,
yeah.
listen, as the start of this, welcome to Horrific. I am from Washington.
If it's viable to what we're talking about,
Yeah, but you
it's
never
like,
know when people are tuning in. I get it. And
that's
frequency
true.
is key.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well,
but
you
one
asked
thing
a question about Southern horror, so I'm from Virginia.
yeah, exactly.
I grew up.
I mean, I just found it funny where I'm
It
like,
wasn't random.
am I the only person going, I think they understand your, but it's because I
Yeah.
hear it every time.
No, it's true.
But I mean, that tends to be the case. Like, find myself
left
doing that with my husband too. He'll kind of repeat the same jokes or repeat the same things, and I just roll my eyes. I'm like, oh great, now I'm the eye rolling wife. I get it now. I get being the eye
That's so
rolling
funny.
wife because I've heard it a million times.
My eyes aren't rolling; they're running from your story. I've heard many times, right? So, but the other thing that
As we think about merch ideas for the show, we could say, I'm from Tennessee, but then I
grew up
moved
in
to
DC.
DC.
Yeah, or your brother traumatized.
Yeah, I'm sure
Honk
if
if
we
you've been
went back,
traumatized by your brother for horror. Yeah,
yeah.
but
Or Rebecca's not really a horror fan, or wasn't much of it. Yeah,
didn't know she was
yeah.
a fan. Thank
And
you.
the amount of people that are like Goosebumps. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some repeats here. But
Mhm.
anyway, anyone looking for a
Mhm.
drinking
That is
game,
great that
Never
you
read
did not bring up
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. Yeah, it was Twilight
I'm
Zone, which I'd love. Yeah.
which I thank you for. No, I mean, it's like it is whatever it is, but it's nice to. If someone was playing bingo on this episode with drinking, they wouldn't get it.
Yeah. They'd be like, damn it, I didn't get my G for Goosebumps.
Yeah, I never read it. So Goosebumps, I know it was out when I was a kid, but like it really didn't become super popular until I was a little too old for it. So I
Yeah.
was probably a late teens by the time I heard about Goosebumps. It certainly wasn't
Yeah,
in my middle
definitely.
school libraries. I I didn't know about it until it was too late.
Now, did they have Scholastic book fairs at your or Troll? It
Look,
was
don't
for
be
me. It
getting
was
into
Troll
her
They
back in the
did.
business.
way.
We didn't. I didn't have money to spend at those.
Yeah.
I was one of the kids that got to go look, and that was it.
Oh, that's so sad. My brother would make me buy all the New Kids on the Block books for him and get them sent to my
You
grade, so it didn't
see,
look like he was buying the Jordan
that would
Knight
be the
bio.
books I would have wanted. I loved it.
It was always like, and here's the Jordan Knight bio for Adam, and I'm like, it's not for me. Everyone's looking at me, but yeah. One thing I loved to talk about too is I know that Actually, Cassandra, she brought her up. Cassandra Celia bought me a little print from Bloodstains by Gaslight of yours, I think at AuthorCon, and just wanted to, say those really cool events. I met you at the, one at Vortex. How does the like horror community and, writing community, all that kind of stuff inspire you? And how have you found it to be, welcoming as you are? Like you said, it's more like in the last 10 years or so that you've been writing. What do you think about the horror community and how it accepts people and inspires and all that kind of stuff?
I love the horror community. So I had trouble even finding horror stories and books that I really loved until I
Mm-hmm.
found this little niche online community that was sharing all these stories. And then finally, I found stuff that really resonated, and a lot of it was indie. Not all of it, but a lot of it was indie horror.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is going back like 7 years, or I don't even know how many years. But I finally started just connecting with people and talking with people, and I've met so many wonderful, inspiring authors and artists. And I, you go to these events in person when you can, and when you can't, you just watch what people are doing online. I've been so inspired by like Laurel Hightower, for example, Gemma Moore, and who's a great creative mind who is Josh Malerman. And
Yeah.
I met him at a Scares at Care event. This was I had started writing, but I wasn't really digging in, getting published or anything at the time. And he was just such a creative mind, like everything, like music and art and writing, and it was really inspiring just to watch him work from a distance. and
Yeah.
and I can name so many people right now who have inspired me. Well, I went to Scares at Care in 2021. I had a table there selling my first two books, and I met so many people there. I was table neighbors with Laurel Hightower and Sonora
Mm.
Taylor and V Castro. And so I met all
Yeah.
these cool people, but I also went to these panels and these author readings where I was just inspired to just write the thing. And that was the event that inspired me to write this book, Bloodstains by Gaslight, was that event, because I just heard so many inspiring discussions about just doing it, about just writing that story that nobody wants to hear.
Or you think they don't, right? But they really do. I love that. That's so cool. And will you be at AuthorCon again this year?
I will. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We'll be there too this time. So
Yay.
we're very excited. We'll see you there. Um, that is very cool. So one, where can we find you? And two, do you have anything specific coming up or out in the next time, year or so or whenever that you can talk about? Because a lot of times people can't. But what's next for you?
Right now, well, you can find me I'm online as at Red Lagoe, pretty much across social media. I'm mostly active on Instagram and Facebook right now.
Mm-hmm.
And what's new? I'm working on it. I'm working on a couple little projects that are kind of indie projects.
Okay.
And I think I'm trying to release something just kind of on the whim at the end of the year.
Ooh.
So Bloodstains by Gaslight and In Excess of Dark, my last two books, were so
Mm-hmm.
dark and dreary. I was having a hard time writing the next book, so I had to lighten it up. So the next thing I
Yeah.
put out is going to be pretty light and fun and kind of a breath of fresh air for me.
Interesting. I'm excited to see what that looks like. That's
Still
awesome.
horror, but
Yeah.
just lighter.
Very cool. And you said potentially by the end of the year?
Maybe it's pushing it.
Okay.
It is
Soon.
pushing it. So
Relatively soon.
I've worked on a tight schedule before, but we'll see if I can do it effectively and do it well. Then it'll be before the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, we'll be looking forward to it. And hopefully, whatever comes next, we can have you back on to talk about that too, because this was a pleasure. And, thank you so much for joining us.
All right,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
It was great
All
being
right.
here.
Yeah. Have a great night.